First up, though, we're delighted to welcome in the founder and CEO of Team Valor International, Mr. Barry Irwin, who will try to catch lightning in a bottle for a second straight time this year at the Derby with Went the Day Well, the Spiral winner. Barry, it's Eric Wing in New York. Thanks for being on the call with us today.
Thank you very much.
Barry, you've got at least 18 days left as the reigning Kentucky Derby winning owner. What has the last year been like for you, both on a professional and on a personal level?
Professionally, it's been great. I think it gave me some credibility that I didn't have before. I do a lot of unusual things with my selection of horses and where we run them and where we run them. And I think people kind of look at me like I'm just pretty weird and strange, how I run my outfit. And I think this last year, winning the Derby and some other races, I think people are finally figuring out what it is I do. On a personal level, it's been extremely satisfying. Just, having bred the horse and then ported his dam and sold the sire originally and stuff like that has meant a lot to me.
Let me expand, if I may, Barry, on what you just said. During his 2-year-old year, Went the Day Well had run second in a pair of obviously grass events in Great Britain. Could you walk us through how you and your team not just purchased Went the Day Well, but identified him in the first place as a candidate for purchase?
Okay. I have 3 or 4 people that I've relied on for the last 20, 25 years that spot horses for me. They probably send me information between the 2 of them on about 300 horses a year. I mean, virtually a day doesn't go by that I don't get at least 1 or 2 horses from these guys. And one guy in particular, Don Brower, who's a bloodstock agent who lives in Florida, and he's bought many good horses for both me and Bob Baffert and other people over the years, such as Went the Day Well for us and War Emblem. He bought the last 3 winners of the Santa Anita Handicap. He's a pretty sharp guy. So he watched a race in England, called me up, told me to watch it, and it was the debut of Went the Day Well. He was in a maiden race at a smaller track, Haydock. It was about a mile, the race, and he got pinched at the break, fell back. He was about, I'd say, 6th place, maybe 7, 8 lengths out of it with an 1/8 of a mile to go. And when he finally found a spot to run, he just flew home. It was breathtaking. So I tried to buy him. It was very, very tough. I didn't have a deal until I went over to England to look at him and met with the owner, who didn't really want to part with him. And basically, as they say in Kentucky, I muddy whipped him. And he sold me 75% of the horse. He kept 25. And we ran him once over there after that. And for some reason, the jock got it in his head to put him on the lead, which is not what he wants to do. When I looked at the horse, I've bought some horses overseas that I thought would be dirt horses. One of them was a horse called Martial Law, who was bred to run on the dirt, but he was in England sprinting on turf. We were able to bring him to California and win the Santa Anita Handicap with him in his 3rd start. So I've done it a few times. I did it with another horse called the Deputy, who won the Santa Anita Derby. This horse looked like a horse that was in the wrong place to me. He's bred strictly for the dirt. He's a big, strapping horse, looks like a dirt horse. He's got good bone. He's another one of these horses that's kind of a throwback to an earlier era. He's a terrific-looking, solid horse. And I contacted my top clients, and I stuck my neck out. I said, look, I think this is a Kentucky Derby horse. We're going to have to spend a lot of money to get him. We're paying more than a premium. I realize that, but I think it's a horse we can take a shot with. So that's basically how we found him and bought him.
Great backstory. Barry, we've got some writers and broadcasters on the call with us, so at this point I'll turn things back over to our announcer, Shelley, and she'll check in with the media to see what additional questions they might have for you.
Thank you.
Okey-doke.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your touchtone phone. To withdraw your question, please press the # sign. If you're using a speakerphone, please lift the handset before entering your request. We'll pause for a moment to assemble the queue. The first question comes from Danny Brewer from Rutherford Reader. Please go ahead.
Mr. Irwin, how are we doing today?
Pretty good.
The comparisons are going to be inevitable between Went the Day Well and Animal Kingdom, but how much alike are they really?
Not really that much. I think the main thing that they have in common is they both look like they were mile-and-a-quarter horses to me. Animal Kingdom had a very, very stout pedigree. He won going a mile and an eighth late in his 2-year-old year at Keeneland, and we thought he would like the mile and a quarter, and he did. This horse looks like he actually wants to run a little farther maybe than Animal Kingdom. His pedigree isn't quite as stout, but for some reason this horse just has a lot of stamina. The thing that we like about him the best, Graham Motion and I, is when he ran in the spiral, he had to overcome trouble a couple of times just to be in a contending position. When he got to the front, his ears went straight up. He looked like he had no idea where he was, and Johnny Velasquez got him going, but it wasn't until about the last 50 yards of the race where he kind of dropped down and went into another gear, and we caught a glimpse of that the last couple of seconds of the race, and that's what we're hoping to see going a mile and a quarter, that we think he'll move up into a different context.
Do you think that you've gotten to the bottom of this horse yet and seen his best?
No. The trouble with this horse is when he came over here, he got stuck in quarantine. He had a bad test for a disease called pyroplasmosis. It was an erroneous reading, and they were going to force us to send the horse back to England, and we were able to get them to retest, and it came out fine. But the horse got stuck in a stall for 12 or 13 days without being able to go outside of it and exercise at all. So he probably missed about a month to 5 weeks of conditioning because of that. He's one race short of where he should be. He only now looks like he did when I bought him. He has regained his full bloom in his health. He's got the correct amount of weight. And I'm hoping he's going to do well in the Derby, but I think that later on I expect him to do a lot better. He's just only now where he was when I bought him physically.
I appreciate your time, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks.
Thank you. The next question comes from William Doolittle from Leo Weekly. Please go ahead.
Barry, it's Bill Doolittle in Louisville, and I noticed that you said that as in Kentucky, you money whipped the previous owner. I'd just like to know what the owner's name was and maybe how much you paid for him.
Okay. The owner's name is Mark Ford, and Mark Ford, I'm going to read this little thing he sent me about him the other day.
Good.
Mark Ford is British, and he lives in the United Kingdom. He's a consultant in the fields of town planning, transport engineering, and development. And he's been a racehorse owner for about 20 years. He actually did what I did in England for a while. He had a stable of syndicated racehorses, and he raced them under the name of Pinnacle Racing, Pinnacle Racing. He is married to his wife, Lee, Leigh hyphen Ann, A-N-N, and she is a practicing attorney in London, and she's one of the few women who is able to practice in the Queen's Council.
And how much did you pay for him?
That's not a matter of public record at this point.
Oh, well, then maybe you shouldn't have mentioned it. Anyhow.
I guess.
The other thing I'd like to know is who's going to be the rider for the horse?
A guy called Johnny Velasquez.
And he's all signed to do this? You got him locked up?
We're taking his agent's word for it.
That sounds good. Of course, you won the Derby with him last year.
Right.
All right, and the last thing I'd like to know is if you could just describe your horse as an individual. You look at horses and you see what they look like.
Yeah. He's about 16'1", 16'1 and a half. He's a big, solid horse with a big barrel of a chest on him. He's got good, correct front legs. He's got a lot of bone. He's got a good length of rein. The only thing about him behaviorally, everything's fine, except he has this tendency to want to rear up. Last week he did that in his stall at Keeneland and banged his head on the top of the stall. But otherwise on the track he's really good.
All right. Well, thanks, Mr. Irwin.
Okay.
Thank you. The next question comes from Debbie Arrington from Sacramento Bee. Please go ahead.
Hi, Barry. Thanks a lot for coming on today. And it's been almost a year since Animal Kingdom's victory. How has winning the Derby changed your life?
I don't think it's really changed my life as much as I've heard from other people. I'm kind of I've got a regimented routine that I follow.
Okay.
And it's, I mean, I got a big charge out of it. It was extremely exciting. It's meant a lot to me personally and professionally. But, I mean, I think the major thing I would say is how it changed my life is I like to think I was kind of a private person, but I can't go anywhere in Kentucky that somebody doesn't know who I am. And I used to like to walk around the racetrack kind of anonymous, and now those days are over. Everybody knows who the heck I am.
Okay, great. And also, how looking out, at the other contenders in this year's class, it seems pretty wide open. How would you rate this class on a grade scale? Like, is it a B class, an A class? And who do you think are some of the A+ students?
This crop looks like it's deeper than last year for sure. There seems to be a lot more depth in it. The horse that impressed me the most so far was that Bodemeister. I mean, that was Big Brown-like to me. I mean, he looks like he's the one. He's the most talented horse. Whether or not he can come back in a relatively short period of time after a big race like that, and whether he's going to be able to fend off other horses on the lead, I don't know. But just from a pure talent point of view, he looks like he's the one. I still think that Hanson is a good horse. I don't know about 1.25 miles for him. I don't know what all that pre-race activity did to him in this race. He kind of folded up a little earlier than I thought he would. I still think he's a top horse. I think Gemologist is a terrific horse. He's the one that I would say would be a solid horse. Union Rags I would put second in this group. My only qualm about him is he's a big son of a gun. He's by a horse that was basically fast and gets fast horses. I'd be a little concerned about getting the 1.25 miles for him, but he's another super talented horse. I mean, I would say Union Rags and Bodemeister are A horses. I think Gemologist and Hanson would be B+. Dullahan, I don't know what to make of him on the dirt. Obviously on the poly track, he's as good as it gets. Dirt, I don't know. I have a question mark.
Very good. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, if you would like to ask a question, please press *1 on your touchtone phone. The next question comes from Jenny Rees from Louisville Courier-Journal. Please go ahead.
Following up on the previous question about the crop, a trainer had said to me, what makes you think this is such a good crop? Because they're not running fast. And I have my own criteria, but I would be interested in your criteria about, this crop and what makes them, you think, a really good deep crop.
Well, I don't know how much faster you could have gone than that Bodemeister.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, as far as then you could say there's one and then there's the rest. But
well, I think Dullahan broke the stakes record in the Bluegrass. I thought that was pretty good. Fast is a relative term. Are you going to look at the clock at the racetrack, or are you going to believe the figures that are produced by guys like Andy Beyer and Magnuson? I mean, I'm like you. I'm not going so much on what those figures are because I think they change from year to year, and at best, it's guesswork. It's just like when I had Captain Bodgett, and that crop had Freehouse and Silver Charm, and those horses were running 117 and 118. There's no way that those horses were going to beat a horse like Bodemeister or Union Rags by 5 or 6 lengths. So I don't know what to make of those. Those things are like trying to catch a cloud in a bottle to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of throwing you a hanging curve, but also it seems to me the consistency of these. I mean, they don't look like they throw in clunkers. They might get beat, but they seem like they still run. Your top tier run very well every race.
I agree, and I think The only race that was weird was the Florida Derby, and I think that's just because of the pace. That entire race, I just kind of throw out. I don't think El Padrino ran his race. For sure, Union Rags didn't run his race. The winner got loose on the lead, and there was no pace. And I don't make much of the winner. But the other preps, the prep in California was extremely contentious. I don't know how good those horses are. I think Creative Cause is probably a very, very good horse. The horse that won it, I don't know what to make of him. But I think that they're good horses this year.
Mm-hmm. How much do you think, though, that your horse has to improve, if you think he has to improve, to be with the horses that you've just mentioned, like Bodemeister, Junior Rags?
He's excluding Bodemeister, who freaked. If we can keep him out of the mix. The other ones, I think right now, I would think we'd be about 3 or 4 lengths behind them. I think my horse has a lot more room to catch up than them, and I think that my horse is probably about 2 lengths ahead of where Animal Kingdom was last year.
Thank you very much. That was going to be my next question. You just answered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
The next question comes from Mark Doce from America's Best Racing. Please go ahead.
Hi, Barry. There's been reports that Went the Day Well's work on Saturday morning at Keeneland was rather nondescript. Can you comment on that?
I would say that's the most complimentary term I've heard about that work so far. He's a lousy workhorse. We have 3 very talented 3-year-olds this year. We have 2 colts and a filly. The other colt is one named How Great, who's fantastic on the grass. He ran in the bluegrass on the poly, didn't run very well. Then I have a filly called Table 310 who won her first couple of races. Then she's out with a minor injury. But these horses have all worked with other horses, and they've worked together. And they're all graded stakes horses, but they are the lousiest workhorses you can imagine. They just don't care. This work the other day with Went the Day Well. He broke off a half a length behind a good workhorse and wound up in the same spot. The girl that was on the other horse had a good hold on her horse and was looking back. And the guy that was on our horse kind of niggled at him to make some kind of a move, and he never responded. There was probably a 20-pound weight difference in favor of the workmate, but still, this is not the kind of horse that's ever going to inspire anybody in the morning. I know a lot of people are going to wait for this horse to come over to Churchill in his 2 works from now, and they're going to wait to see if he does what Animal Kingdom did the day Animal Kingdom blew everybody's mind in his pre-Derby work. And I can tell them right now that it is not going to happen. This is not that kind of horse. He just doesn't care in the morning, but in the afternoon he brings it. That's all that really counts.
And then back to Animal Kingdom, can you give us an update on him and rate the chances of him ever running again?
I would say the chances of him running again are as high as can be. We've talked to some people about selling him as a stallion this year, but in the final analysis, I just can't bring myself to do it. I think there's too much racing left in this horse. He had a stress fracture on part of his pelvis that didn't break the bone. There was no actual hairline or real fracture. It was just inside the bone. It's a 3-month layup, the last month of which he'll spend on an aqua tread. We hope to get him back to the races late September or early October. We're not going to have any kind of schedule or plan for him. We're just going to train him, let him take his time. When he's ready to run, we'll figure out what to do. Our goal next year will be to try to run in the World Cup that we missed this year.
All right, Barry. Thanks a lot. Continued success.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. There are no further questions at this time. Mr. Irwin, I'll turn it back to you.
Barry, given that you mentioned Went the Day Well is just now reapproaching his peak physical condition, but on the other hand, it's a deep and talented crop. How would you compare your confidence level going into the Derby this year compared to what it was last year?
I think last year I felt really good because of the work of Animal Kingdom. I didn't really think we were going to win the Derby. I could see us winning the Derby, but I didn't. When the gate broke open, I didn't say we're going to win this sucker. You know, with this horse, I think it all depends on what happens in the race. There looks like there's a ton of speed. If somebody goes with this Bodemeister, and there is a lot of speed, I can see this horse picking him up and getting the job done. He really can turn it on. I mean, he's the kind of horse that they used to say if you could run the last quarter in 24 seconds, you could win the Derby. I think this horse can run 23 or less.
And lastly, Barry, any plans on the drawing board now for How Great? As you mentioned, 5th in the Bluegrass after 3 straight grass wins.
Yes, we're going to run him on Oaks Day in the American Turf, whatever they call that race. Yeah, he was a grass horse. I said that going in. I really didn't feel that comfortable running him in that race, but I kind of took one for the team on that one. I felt we had to run him there so our people could have at least a shot to say that we tried to see if he was a Derby horse, and he's not that kind of horse. He's got the quality of a Derby horse, but he's a grass horse. I mean, on grass, his stride is elastic and he's explosive, and I think he's probably one of the top 3-year-old grass colts around, but on dirt or poly track, he just can't do that. So we'll run him on turf at Churchill.
All right. Well, a big May 4th and May 5th shaping up for you and for Team Valor International, most notably with Went the Day Well, who will be in the Run for the Roses. Barry, as others have mentioned, thank you for your time, and best of luck with all your horses in the weeks to come.